Well, so I just want to open up this session by saying good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on wherever your location is. Whoever's watching this online conversation that is being live streamed on LinkedIn, we are recording this session. So for those of you who are not able to stay on for the full session, you can watch the recording afterwards on our YouTube channel. So welcome to our first online session, which is, really exciting, something that we've been working on throughout summer. The series, which is called Leading Resilient, New Knowledges, that focuses on resilience in leadership in addressing intersecting climate justice issues, ensuring that our communities are at the forefront of shaping the future that works for all of us. Now, this initiative is done in collaboration with 𝐰𝐸𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐢, a global dialogue that recognizes and values women and girls as critical leaders during and after a crisis. My name is 𝐤𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 Hassan, and I am the Partnership and Community Lead for New Women Connectors. For those of you who are new to our work, New Women Connectors is a social change movement that advocates for feminist ideals and is led by migrant and refugee women who share common experiences, common expertises, and strengths. We work on transformative policymaking by breaking down the walls to exclusive policy spaces on all levels. So I have the honor of moderating this conversation that we will have today, and I'm super excited to share the floor with very exciting powerhouse speakers from what we call the global majority, specifically from Nigeria, from Fiji, from Bangladesh. And before I pass the floor to all the speakers who are here, I would like to introduce the speakers that we will have today. So first and foremost, of course, I will quickly introduce Anila Noor, who I'm sure all of you are familiar with already, the founder and director of New Women Connectors. Anila Noor is a refugee activist based in the Netherlands. She has diverse expertise, diverse experiences working with national and international nonprofit organizations and causes dealing with peace building efforts, migrant refugee integration, focusing on human rights and women's rights. So she has advocated for the social and political engagement of refugees and migrants, not just in Europe, but also at the global level. And New Women Connectors is essentially a movement that she has initiated. Next, we have 𝐤𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 She is she is the executive director of for Women Initiative for Sustainable Environment based in Nigeria. She is a multiple award-winning climate justice activist, enthusiast, women's empowerment advocate, citizen journalist, and writer. She is also a very passionate public speaker, and a story that she wrote is one of the 17 stories published in a book titled The Anthology of Climate Impact Stories. So welcome to this space, 𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐞𝐝. We're really happy to have you here. Next, we have Razia Sultana. And Razia is the director of the Arakan Rohingya National Organization, as well as the founder and director of the Rights for Women and Welfare Society, or the RWWS. So the RWWS aims to prevent human trafficking and strengthen the psychosocial resilience amongst Rohingya refugee women. And Razia has been working directly with Rohingya women and girls in the refugee camps in Bangladesh since 2014. She has interviewed hundreds of Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh for research documenting sexual violence and rape. And in 2019, she received the US State Department's International Courage for Women Award, recognizing her role in advancing human rights. And last, definitely not least, we have Joel Abraham, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Fijian Competition and Consumer Commission, or the FCCC, Triple C. He has extensive business and public sector experience. Immediately prior to his appointment to the FCCC, he was a regulatory compliance, finance, and business advisor in various capacities in Australia, Fiji, and Tonga, both in the public and private sector. He is also a New Women Connectors Advisory Board member for climate justice. So I'm super honored to be in the same room as all of you. And now, but before we get started with the conversation, right, which is what we want to really discuss, I will quickly pass the floor to Anila to tell you a little bit more about this series and why this is really important, especially with a lot of things happening in the coming months. So over to you, Anila.
Thank you, 𝐤𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬, and welcome everyone. As 𝐤𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 said, this is our part of our work which we are doing by using our lived experience, and the work which we done in COVID. Actually, during COVID, we come up this approach of leading resilience, and this is approach which we are using from last few years, where we are using the element how we define what is problem according to us, and us means communities who have less privilege, who has less access to the opportunities, who have less access to the information. So that's why we are tackling this approach by using we are leading, and we have the right to not only have the seat on the table, but also define what is problem according to us. We are defining what is a solution and how we can co-create this solution. We are also advocating for meaningful participation to make this mechanism, because social change is very complex than we can think. That's why we thought what happening right now in Gaza, in other part of the world, and there's already very high level discussion going on in the Summit of the Future. Then we have a COP29, and so many things are interconnected. So that's what we really want to say, how we people, we are not only vulnerable, we are leaders of the future, and we have the right to say what we want. So that's the main purpose. We are relaunch our dating resilience, and we really want to tackle how we define what is new knowledges and how we work together these new knowledges. We also launch our collaboration of the broadcast, the global development of the review. We already published one episode where we discuss about European Union election and its impact on the migrants and refugee with Jafar Latif and other part of our speakers. And that's what we want to say, how new knowledges need to be accepted when people are saying what they really want. So that's the main purpose of having this collaboration. And I'm super happy and thankful for all the speakers who are joining us today to really start to create such kind of a brave and open space where we really want to understand how we are the leaders, and we should have the power to make this decision. We are not beneficiary, we are not passive receiver of the policy, we are the future leaders, and we really need more access and more resources to invest on for our the future. Thank you so much, and super happy to have you all, and back to you, 𝐤𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬.
Thank you, Anila. Thank you so much for those very inspiring words. And that really sets the stage for this conversation. And I'm really happy that actually Joel is just here. He arrived just in time. Welcome, Joel, to this conversation. Let me just pin you to the screen so we can all see you. Welcome to this space. So now setting the stage for this conversation, right? As Anila have said, like we're all interconnected. There are many global events happening this week and the coming months, right? We've got the Climate Week, which is happening all the way in New York next week. There's the Summit of the Future. There is COP29 in November, and these are all the big global events where local and grassroots communities are effectively excluded in many ways or participating in very limited ways, right? And as Anila also highlighted in her latest article on LinkedIn, this division is not just limited to global forums. It mirrors a wider system of exclusion that plays out every day. So I'm sure our audience wants to start listening to our wonderful speakers and not myself speaking. And I will now go to 𝐤𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 first. Your work is to champion women's voices, to equip them with resources to build their capacity in leadership skills and engage in policy making processes, right? So as a community leader and also building the capacity of women to take leadership. What does leading resilience or even leadership mean to you in the context of your work?
Yeah, for me, thank you very much. And I love this question because leadership is something that has been confused around the world to mean control. I'm actually a leadership development coach, and I like to define leadership first as service. Service and influence is a combination of service and influence. And narrowing it down to the issue of resilience, in terms of leading resilience, coming from the angle of my work, what we've been doing, just as you've rightly described, is equipping people, especially women at the grassroots, with the knowledge, information, skills they need to drive solutions. So leading resilience for me is about disrupting the status quo by equipping the most vulnerable people who maybe lack leadership, lack decision. Beyond equipping them with skills, what do they do with the information, knowledge, and skills that they are being handed? So it's about positioning them to be able to cope, adapt, and thrive, when an unanticipated or anticipated changes happen, that will ordinarily disrupt their lives. So you want to position them, prepare them, to be able to respond. And I believe that that's all about leading resilience for me. Thank you.
Wonderful. Those are excellent definitions or, really elaborations of leadership. And I will get to your point about working with the women later on. Now I will turn to Joel. If you're there, welcome and hello. You are good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Yes, and
Yeah,
now the spotlight is on you because the question goes to you now. You are, of
sure.
course, in this topic of leadership, right? You are leading a statutory board. You've got extensive experience, not just in the public sector, but also the private sector. But you're also a very strong advocate for gender equality. And I read somewhere that the FCCC won this prestigious title of the 2019 Women's Employer of Choice. So you are a gender equality advocate as well, which is really what we need. We need like a male ally, right, in this cause.
Mm.
So for you, in the context of your work, what does leading resilience mean?
Hi. Thank you so much. And I was earlier connected, but as Manisha and I do. So that's why you couldn't see me. And then I was asked to just quickly get on to my link. But thank you for having me, and thank you, Anila. Your leadership in getting all of us to around this virtual table, I think, is a testament to the good work that you've been doing and the flag that you've been carrying in taking the rights of women and ensuring that we are mainstreaming gender issues and we're not just sweeping them under the carpet. Now, in the context of small island states like Fiji and other Pacific Island nations, resilience for us and resilience leadership means basically facing existential threats of climate change head on. And basically, this means that our communities are really at the forefront of rising sea levels, extreme weather conditions, environmental degradation. And while we at a global stage emit quite less as a nation, we get the full brunt. The frequency and intensities of cyclones increase, and we firsthand know what it feels like. Now, I'll share what leadership means, and resilience leadership basically means looking at people, and it's not looking at them from a public policy perspective, not looking at them from any other angle, but just looking at them from a human being's perspective, like one human to another. And it's not about just what's happening to a particular group or vulnerable group during things like cyclones or flooding or any other adverse weather conditions. Now, for us, in order to protect ourselves, in order to protect and safeguard our culture, in order to safeguard our sovereignty and our way of life, I think there's certain disruptions that are needed in the market. And so I'll give you some examples of what we did. Now, post cyclone, one of the things we noticed is the government was all ready to give out food rations. The government was ready to hand out medication. The government was ready to do all these things. And then there were NGOs coming on board doing exactly the same thing as well. And they were assisting different communities to bounce back. But one thing that nobody was looking at, everybody was handing out food. And we said, what about sanitary pads? And so the FCCC, what we did is we got together, talked to a few private sectors and looked at where the linkages could be made. And then through the private sector, we got into partnerships with them. And during TC Yasa and TC Herald, we went out to 𝐷𝐷𝐷, which is the other largest island in Fiji that was badly damaged. And we went out and basically spoke to women, looked at, how can we talk about issues of period poverty. And because the last thing anybody thinks about when there's a cyclone is that women will also need sanitary pads. Even, I mean, the period cycles won't stop. They'll come when they're supposed to come. And unfortunately, at that point in time, everybody is just worried about food, water, shelter. And those are important. I'm not saying they are not important. But from a policy perspective, I mean, looking at it from a gender lens, you need to be able to understand what are the vulnerabilities of different communities, what are the vulnerabilities that different people face. And if I can draw some inference to what Anila has been doing and the good work that they've been doing with migrant and refugees. Now, often people that are displaced and they are in positions of vulnerability, how do they basically come out and talk about what their issues are, what is affecting them, and who is listening and who is supporting them? And is it a one-off kind of support? Do you just take aid and just distribute it? They say give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. But how do you ensure that these things are mainstreamed into policy so that it is not people oriented, it must be systems and process oriented, so that when you look at the macroeconomic policies of a country, when you look at general economic policies of a country, there must be some linkages between these vulnerable groups, especially women, migrant women, refugee women. And when you talk about migrants, my forefathers were a sort of migrants. I call it slavery 2.0. They were a result of the indenture system. And the indenture system was basically done to replace when slavery was abolished. So my forefathers were taken to plantations and left in Fiji. And after 5 years, those conditions were quite harsh. They weren't paid really well, etc., etc. Women suffered a lot of really bad, degrading, and atrocious things at the hands of their white masters. And there are accounts of women in Fiji they talk about having given birth today and being asked to go to cotton fields tomorrow. So, I mean, that is the history in which we have come out of. And
Yes.
while I can say that, today we are much better than we were yesterday, there's definitely a long way to go. And while we love to talk about gender, while we love to use it as cross-cutting themes, I fail to see how these things are mainstreamed and how they reflect into actual policies that deliver actual benefits to women. Because I go out in communities and I talk to women. And the issue that I get from them is that they want assistance, but they don't want to be going out and asking for assistance all the time. They want it to be mainstream. They want a leg up. They don't want a handout. So for me, resilience leadership is about creating that ecosystem, that environment, and ensuring that women who are classified as vulnerable groups are taken care of through policies, through systems and processes, and not through people.
That's right. Excellent. So you've touched on a lot of very important points that is really, alluding to the purpose of this conversation. And I want to actually turn to Razia. Thank you so much, Joel, for that. And you touched on the topic of migrants and refugees. And for Razia, you're a dedicated human rights defender working with Rohingya women defending and protecting their rights for a long time. And life is extremely difficult in the camps. And if there's anyone who knows resilience, it is you and the community that you work with. So we really want to know for you, how do you experience, how do you even come to describe what does leading resilience mean to you and to the people you work with? Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you for asking the question, because this is a very important question for me. Also, people has to know this one. I work in Bangladesh, and I work in Cox's Bazar Rohingya refugee camp. When I start my psychosocial resilience program, it was a big challenge for me. I start the psychosocial resilience program because of I am also a researcher, and I collect more than 100 rape victim testimony in my reports. It was a rape by command, and that time I thought maybe they need a psychosocial, but when I want to implement in a camp, whatever in the field level, but unexpectedly the issue and the subject is very unknown, even is unknown in whole the Bangladesh. So what kind of, yes, there is some psychosocial doctor or anything, but what about the resilience? They don't understand it, and also is not particularly we know. So for me also is a very new. So I collaborate with the one Korean NGO who were work with the comfort women. I think you heard about the comfort women, about the Japan Second World War and Korean issue. So they are my partner. Still we are running a resilience program. First, it was a 6-month pilot project, but I cannot, enter in camp because of conservativeness. With the conservativeness, I cannot bring any woman in our center, one room center, and I face threaten. I also, my life threatening it was there, and also from both my community and from my Bangladesh perspective, they don't want to allow me to do that, because Bangladesh firstly they say about it is about your security, but my community that said it is against the religion. So it needed time, and 2 months I advocate them, and I connect with our community educated youth who are with me, and continuous we are talking with them, and we make them understand then how important is psychosocial resilience training, also somatic therapy, because most of the women, not everyone, yes, but most of the women is very affected too much. When I chose the camp, is a camp 14 very small, but there is a most of women, there is a block, all are widow. Yes, some are also face the sexual violence. So this one is the issue about the sexual violence. It is not easy to asking them, because of the, even still is a 7-year, there are so many women now still, they are now maybe confidence to share their what they faced about the sexual abuse or about the rape. So this one is a very critical moment for me. Even from the last August, I was in my Cox's Bazar from the last month, and I cannot, it's not my personal issue, but I'm sure the bombing, I lost my family, but when I taking the testimony, most of the women, children are affected. They are in the bombing because men have able to run, because they don't, that time women are left behind, because women have a children, because women it's like the society norm, you cannot run or you cannot hide yourself. When you want to do something, you have to think about your family. But men, just one bombing, they run out. But women, they are sitting with their children. And the one pregnant woman who lost her leg, and she is shouting, help me. But after 3 days, she died, and none of them help her. All those who are alive, they take the boat and they come past the Bangladesh, the most vulnerable, who our women. So this is the kind of discrimination I see, because women, maybe people think disabled women cannot, is a burden for society, so they are not able to save her. This is a one example for me. And the other thing, because of the pass of the river, when the amount of the mother and children and men who are in, and they are, what about the accidentally or whether they drowned and sinking the boat. Most of the women and children are died, and their men survived. So what is the reason? Always I tell, because women try to catch their children, and that time they are, but men, maybe this is my emotional, because I saw this one on my eyes. And another thing, the women never thought that they have an individual life. They are, maybe they thought they're the part of family, but she have no individual right. So my effort, my approach to introduce them, you have right, you have your individual life, and you have a choice that you don't have to face the so many discrimination, because you have a right to live well. So the thing is very critical, very challenge, and every moment I facing this one. And women, I am very glad that who are fled in the 2017 women, they say, now we understand that women have right. And we need to do more, because social patriarchy society is not change overnight. The patriarchy society in camp, also in the host, is the same thing for me, because I live in Bangladesh, and this is, you can see, as a male-dominated society. For me, as a woman organizer and activist, not easy to take responsibility for the vulnerable women, because I also need everyone's support. Yes, but it is, yeah, it is a very, important thing. Everyone should help each other so that women can forward. I'm not saying I'm against the man. Yes, I'm a feminist, but we need support also, men. Otherwise, because I success my work when I include the man activity and the youth to understand that one. So slowly I'm doing, and I hope I will do more. So thank you for.
Well, we have no doubt that you will do more. Thank you so much for that sharing. It's definitely the work that you do. It touches on so many different aspects, and it can be, what you're doing surely has a long-term impact. And now I will turn to the next topic, which is about communities. I mean, it's all linked, right? And on this topic about, Razia was saying you're a feminist, you're not against men, but we're working in partnership, right? But at the same time, we also want to spotlight women at the forefront. And this for 𝐤𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐤𝐬𝐬, you've been, really foregrounding the work of women leading the way, right? In terms of dealing with the difficulties that they are confronted with daily, right? That's to do with the intersecting climate crisis that we face. So how could you give some examples of the communities you work with, and how they're actually leading solutions, leading the way, and what are some of the sort of stories or examples you share to give us a flavor of this women leading solutions?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been exciting listening to the two other speakers, and I hear they actually touched on some of these things. In my parts of Nigeria, coming into the environmental and climate space, it's always been sexist. You find out that the very environmental and climate issues that affect the lives of women are kind of, the solutions were more in the hands of the men, because women lacked access to decision-making spaces. And, over time, they have kind of been laid back themselves. I always say within my cycles that we cannot continue to sing the song that women have been marginalized. We have what it takes, we have the power, to change these narratives. And one of the things that I found out that women were lacking beyond even the decision-making, being in the decision-making spaces, was the fact that they were very ignorant, of, what they could do. They lacked knowledge, they lacked opportunities, and that has kind of reinforced a situation that creates a picture of them being laid back and thus contributing more to their vulnerability to these challenges. And, you know, at the back of my mind is that no one can speak for you like you would speak for yourself. No one can, you know, change something like you will do. So agency comes to play, because I found out that when we started our work, we were more concerned about helping, you know, like it's kind of addressing issues in using an approach of help, kind of also reinforces, you know, that same vulnerability, marginalization that we're talking about. So we needed to change our approach to start focusing on getting communities to take ownership, you know, of their own solutions, to contribute to these solutions. And so we started working with women by also delivering agency to them and also listening to them. So we go to communities, we conduct needs assessment. What are the issues that matter to you? What exactly are you going through? We do baseline studies, because sometimes as an organization, we think through solutions, and then at the end of the day, you get to the community, you'll find other things. So it's now became, you know, better to use an approach that will tap into the knowledge of the communities. For example, a part of Nigeria that was flooded, that experienced heavy flooding, the south part of Nigeria about 2 years ago. I think that was a focus of my story in that anthology, because a lot of issues were not reported, especially issues that affected the lives of women. Each time I turn to the papers, I find, you know, stories, men are interviewed. Nobody was really asking questions, you know, from these women. Nobody was reporting what the women faced. And when I conducted my research, I found out that even young girls who experienced the floods and where, you know, their families had to put them in some households, some of them got raped. And, you know, nobody heard of those stories. And so if you're not asking the people who are worst impacted, who are, you know, who are at the front lines of facing these things, nobody is really asking them, then you find out that initiatives, programs, policies that are brought to the bear to address these issues will definitely not address it. So the voices of the people who are worst impacted must shape every program, every initiative, every narrative, every solution. The people who are worst impacted must be at the center of it all, and they must be the ones driving it. So by delivering agency or tapping into the agency of this vulnerable communities, I think a lot of difference would be made, as against, you know, them being passive. I was glad to hear Anila use that, you know, when she was laying the foundation at the beginning, that we can no longer continue to sit back and watch people become recipients, you know, or passive recipients of, you know, policies, programs, initiatives that have been handed over to them. They must be actively involved.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Such a powerful point that you highlighted. And this is, I want to link this also with Razia's work, actually, because you work to also, you support the self-organizing of the Rohingya women, and they, you know, do where they lead specific actions. What has your experience been doing this? And if there have been any, you know, examples that you can share with us about the women leading all these different actions? Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. In the actually, myself, I created a women network in COVID period in 2020 with 𝐤𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 very necessary that time. And also I know there are some self-help women group in the camp, but the thing they never highlighted, and they cannot come in front because of support, and they didn't get any support from As you know, there is a lots of INGOs, lots of agencies in Cox's Bazar, but they never highlighted this kind of self-help women organization. Just use the women who are leading, so they bring that the leadership, whatever say, one person who are leading them, that use them as a advertisement. But for them, what the women need, they never understand that part, because self-help women group created for the supporting the each of women, not the one person. But I did this is I started in the 2020, and still I'm doing, because women networking is not only choose the specific person. Yes, we need that specific leader to join with the others. For in meantime, I can say still the INGOs or local NGOs or led NGOs use only the leader that we created, but they never support when they are threatened, especially if the women when threat for their community or something, but they never with them, but they use them, they highlighted them, they publish in online, but they never think that this woman also need a security. And there is so many things that women faced. Even some women were kidnapped, some women children are kidnapped, and some sexual abuse happened, but that issue never highlighted, because they thought maybe if this highlighted, they will lose the connection. But one thing, no, you cannot lose your connection. You have to support through this woman to other women and give them strength. And you have to, grow the confidence and trust, because they cannot build the trust. So that's why self-help group and women not trusting them and not supporting them. As myself, a single person cannot only helping them, cannot help them individually, but it's very I can say we are swimming in the ocean of discrimination. Women issue never prioritized, but for the advertisement, women are always in front line. Oh, look at that, this is our leader, but behind the problem we never focus. So I want to say that everywhere, focus on the field level, focus on those women self-help group. So how can they use support? You're just thinking about who have certificate, who have registration, or who have face value. Face value, maybe you can connect it, but you cannot change the society. If you want to change the society, you have to go through the field level. What I am doing, maybe it's a small approach, but I realize that if we looking in the field level and connect with them, I think society will change, and we can prevent some kind of male domination, especially in the women rights. Also, we can, so that this is the essential women human right, basic rights, and you have to accept this. So acceptance, still they are not ready. So we need more initiative and involve the more women, especially from the field level. Thank you.
Razia, you highlighted something very important, which is, taking the stories of women and then veering into what we call tokenization also, right?
Yes.
So this is, I want to turn now to the only male in the panel, not because of tokenization, but because you represent, right, Fiji a lot at all these high level global events, and you are the interlocutor, right, with policymakers. You represent not just Fiji but also like the small islands, right? Now we know that even when our voices are invited to the table, the terms of engagement are top down, right? And like I said, veer into tokenization. So after all of this experience, Joel, like of advising and consulting even states, development agencies, what else do you think is missing? Like you were talking about they need, gender need to be mainstreamed and all of that. Like how can these mechanisms of inclusion or participation be improved?
Yeah, I mean, thank you. It's a very great question and a very valid point. I think we often and Razia made a very good point that We like to put women at the forefront, and but when you look at inclusive policies, when you look at actual implementation of those policies or how these policies and frameworks are put together, you find that often the marginalized communities are missed. So, I mean, my view is that communities must lead climate solutions that addresses their unique challenges. And these are unique challenges that are faced by women, by refugees, by migrants. And the whole idea is to ensure that they are part of the decision-making process and not just takers. You're not just a policy taker, you're part of shaping the policy. And I believe that if we are including marginalized groups such as migrant women, such as refugees and communities, we can develop policies that are both intersectional as well as equitable, ensuring that nobody is left behind. I also believe that communities are should not just be passive recipients of climate impacts, but they should be active participants in shaping policy. And if I can draw uh, some example out of the Pacific Island nation, I mean, you look at the Pacific nations, we have become strong advocates on the global stage, pushing for climate financing, pushing for loss and damages, pushing for all these incentives and initiatives that should happen at a global level that addresses the concerns and challenges that people face. The Pacific in Fiji is the first country in the world to have climate-induced migration, whereby you had instances where people and villages had to be relocated. And that relocation was just a direct result of sea level rise and being battered by the cyclone. So, because Pacific Island nations have become a very strong advocate, I think the recognition needs to happen, especially that there is climate-induced displacement and that climate-induced migration is happening. And if you do come to Fiji and have a chat with villagers, no, these are not just homes for people. Villages and communities in Fiji, they have a very strong link with the people. We call it the vanua, and it's almost an intangible that we identify with. There is a very strong relationship that we have with the land, and it's unfortunate that a lot of villages are now having to move as a result of that sea level rise. And because these are the communities that are affected, these communities should be central to crafting regional as well as international frameworks to protect the rights of migrants and communities so that there is safe relocation, so there is adequate support. And the idea is because you could come in and say to a village, you need to move. But if you look at a family and how a family is organized, now, historically, we've been very patriarchal. We are continuously talking about the need to have women and women issues being mainstreamed. And I believe it can't be mainstream unless women have a seat at the table, not receiving what the policies are that have been made, not receiving the impacts of climate change, but being at the forefront of shaping policies. And I believe that there could be a lot more innovation. And I say, I mean, we're talking about innovation and we're talking about resilience and we're talking about sustainability today. I'll tell you something I watched growing up. My mom would never throw away a jar. She would never throw away a container. And in fact, it would be used and reused and recycled until it broke. So, I mean, talk about sustainability. We were in the habit. I mean, that is mainstream for us. It's culture. Now we are talking at a global level of how do we minimize plastic waste. Bring the women to the table. They'll tell you how to minimize it because they've been doing it for ages. And there's nothing new under the sun. So I believe that innovation and community-led responses, especially in small island countries like Fiji, will offer a valuable lesson to the global community, especially on how you could address issues of resilience as well as climate adaptations. And I think these solutions have uh, they have a potential to be scaled up and to be adapted for use in other vulnerable regions around the world. So these are just my experiences and things that I've observed.
Excellent. Yes, excellent. Thank you for sharing those insights. And also linking this to what's happening, right? Like I was saying, like COP29 is happening soon. And Olanike, I know that you were at COP28 last year, right? So on this topic of representation and visibility, right? So I'm going to ask you a little bit of a provocative question, right? Say, for example, if you were to be at COP29 this year, and if a high-level policymaker comes to you and say, why should we include the perspectives of your communities? We are working with big companies with all the technical expertise, all of this fancy technology to tackle climate issues. Like, we do not need others involved in coming up with solutions. What would you say to someone like that?
In very simple words, I would say, you can't give what you don't have. It's only someone who is wearing, the shoes that know where it really pinches. So if you're not wearing a shoe that, is hurtful, you are not going to understand the pain. So I think the very people who are bearing the brunt, who are feeling the pain, who are the ones that are affected, the last speaker who mentioned his mom, those are the people who know the solutions. Those are the people who are feeling the pain. They are the ones that should be taking the decisions, not people who will just come, sit and, just talk. And I think that's why it's been like, talk is cheap. So yes. For someone who really wants, change, I don't think the person will just be there to talk. The person will be there to drive action, to really say things change and not, just, the usual talk and then everyone goes and then we're back together. And, the people at the last mile, the internally displaced persons. I'm not sure, these people, we have a lot of internally displaced persons in Nigeria. For example, there was a major flooding in a state that even resulted to the release of a prison break, because the prisoners, hardened criminals, were able to escape into the floods and all that. So who should be talking about issues around climate impact and all that than the people who are the front lines, not the people who are just watching their TV and they are saying it and, they just take a decision. So the people who should take the decisions are the people who have, whose farms have been flooded, whose means of livelihoods have become non-existent. I've seen pregnant women in situations of flooding, and they're all over the place trying to salvage, whatever they could from. So these are the people, and I love the fact that the other female speaker, I don't want to miscall her name, that's why I'm not mentioning her name, talked about the issues that women, who are the front lines. Yes, we know it's not just women, but we all know that women are the worst impacted for some reasons that have already been mentioned. So these are the people that we want to see in those spaces. It doesn't have to be all of them, but from time to time, when you bring this people into those closed spaces where these decisions are being taken, I think it will send a strong signal to people who are just there, coming up with high-level decisions that is not touching, the heart of the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, 𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐞𝐝, for that very passionate intervention. And you're preaching to the choir. We are completely aligned with what you said. And turning to Razia now, because Razia, you have also been invited to speak at multiple global events on issues that affect Rohingyas. And you act as a conduit, right, between, different development actors and the community. Now, with all this recognition for the work that you do, all this, representation, do you see anything changing in terms of the impact on the community with the people you work with?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, slowly it's changing. Before, maybe most of the policy making in the policy platform, but the high level. But when they come in the field level, the policy or their program cannot, implement because of the lack of information. So they understand now that if we make any program or anything, we have to be look in the field level, or we have to go in the field level. And maybe not most of, but I'm seeing so many changes. Even the UN Women is a big organization, I know. Yes, in Cox's Bazar, in the UN sector, they are the most small one, but they are slowly now changing some policy about the women issue, about how to they include the women directly, especially in the field level leaders. So other agency and other donor, or I can say the stakeholder, have to see that one, have to watch that. Because when you are making your policy with your mind, you just think maybe I will make this policy, it will be maybe very nicely implemented in the field level. But the problem is your mind and the field level mind is not the equal. They think other way, you think maybe the straight way. So there is a need to be collaboration. The collaboration in the main issue, and connection have to be more not informal, not formal, have to be practical. Because sometimes monthly or maybe 3 months, 4 months you went in there, then you watch your program. It's not is a connection. You have to listen. What is your how can your program is going, who are benefited, and why is not implement, or what is the problem in your program. Because I am also one of sufferer. When we made our psychosocial, it was totally cannot implementable. So we have to change. We take the initiative and concern of the society, concern of the people, concern of the women. Because first women say we need a separate place to where we can move easily, and they need a security, and they need also involvement in decision making process. Like when we are talking with the man, maybe with modest way, with parda, we say is the conservative women always behind the clothes. So they convince us to talk with parda, that what they are facing. Then they collaboration with the man, with the program manager, all the stakeholder, all the NGOs. They are giving the concern, and those who are now listening this and try to understand, it slowly is changing. So I cannot say it's not impossible or not changing, it's changing. And we will see more change in maybe in upcoming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Razia, for that input. It's it's a very good point about collaboration, but also collaboration in equal terms, and not just a top-down and a one-way kind of approach. We're not necessarily taking questions. We're not opening the floor for questions, but I thought this question that came in from LinkedIn Live, it's a quite interesting one, which is, how can leaders, community leaders, right, support their teams in applying the principles of resilience that the speakers have covered today? So this is an open question for all of you, and perhaps it is a good closing question. Maybe we can have a quick 1 or 2 lines from all the speakers with regards to this question. How can leaders best support their teams to apply resilience to their work? Perhaps I can give the floor to Joel first, and then Razia, and then 𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐞𝐝, if that's okay.
Sure. I'll keep it very. I'll try and keep it very short. But I think leaders should create a culture where transparency and open dialogue should be encouraged. I think teams should feel safe to express challenges, setbacks, concerns, because until you correctly and adequately identify what the problems are, you can't really understand and develop or shape solutions. And I think back to the earlier point, I think that is what's missing at the global stage at COP. There is a disconnect between vulnerable groups in communities and global policy. So I think we should ensure that the problems are very well identified. I think there should be regular check-ins. There should be open door policies. It should allow teams to be able to raise their voices, share innovative ideas of overcoming obstacles. And this can be in the corporate sector, it can be organization-based, and it can be community-based as well. We should also model resilience. I mean, leaders themselves must embody the resilience, I mean, by demonstrating flexibility, optimism, as well as looking at determination of overcoming any adversity. The other one I think that has been discussed today is how do you empower decision making as well as ownership? And when resilience grows when individuals feel empowered to take initiatives, to make decisions, and they feel that leaders give them the autonomy to solve their own problems and experiment with new approaches. And sometimes innovate, and that's what I say. Sometimes innovation is not about coming up with new ideas. Sometimes it is identifying innovation in one jurisdiction and applying it to a whole new context. So, how do you, as leaders, encourage people to become empowered? Uh, Resourcing and training, I think this is something at a global stage. There's a lot of talk and a lot of hot steam. I think it needs to be followed up with actual action. Uh, we also need to encourage a growth mindset and focus on general well-being. I think looking back at our own individuality, our own communities, we have the issue of we have initiatives already inbuilt on resilience. Like I give an earlier example about recycling, but if you look at the Fijian system, in the Fijian culture, I have recently found out that when we look at the sea, we look at waves and we think it's waves. The indigenous knowledge that exists, which is fast going away, there's 13 different types of waves. So they could look out at the sea and know a cyclone was coming, and they would adequately prepare. Or they saw 3 breadfruits at the bottom branch, and they knew that was a sign that a cyclone was coming. So they were able to take cues from nature, and they were able to learn, and they were able to adapt, and that became traditional knowledge. And I think in our pursuit of modernization or becoming too westernized, we have given traditional and indigenous knowledge the backseat. And the funny part is that most of this indigenous knowledge are kept with women because they are the storytellers of communities. And I think it is very important to ensure that as leaders, we encourage those traditional practices and we bring them and we mainstream them. So I hope I've answered it.
Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you, Joel. And Razia, over to you. Just some closing words on, instilling resilience.
I think this is very important for a leader. Leader should be transparency and clear vision. Share his, who are following her. Yes, because I have some woman leader, because at myself I am an advisor for them. So when I'm giving them not training the advice that when you get something or you are offered for, suppose I am asking them for a training, you have to give the information that what is the benefit of your training, and also you have to ensure your safety, security, because camp place is very, it's not a safe. So one thing also I encourage them, you choose your place where you are secure. So I give the all, it's not that I made a woman center in the ground, so all have to come here, but this is impossible sometimes for some women. So I ask the women, especially the women leaders, you have to find your way so you can get the proper information or proper training. Also, those who need the training, so we can share the thing, and also we can grow their confidence, because without grow confidence, you cannot, get your goal. It's not actually goal. The changes have to come from the woman, especially in my camp. I'm seeing the changes because they are changing themselves, because they are I can say confidence. The confidence level have to grow first, then you can take the leadership. And there are some also leadership, they're very much selfish, because leadership means they thought you were superior. But no, leadership is not a superior. They are the friend. They are your, yes, leader is as a assistant. Leader is not a superior. So we have to think about that, and we should not ask them, then you have to, take the order. You have to take up my advice, or it's not permission, consultant is. So this kind of, I think when you create, you can automatically see the change, what I'm seeing. So I think it is a motive about the leadership point. So don't take leadership as a personal issue or your, but one thing I also share, one thing, we Rohingya have so many leaders and we don't like our leaders and leaders are not liking us. So we cannot, get any solution. So this is my own personal, so I'm sharing with this. So leaders should
Wonderful.
be, yes, leaders should be I'm not good in English, but I say leaders should be real human as assistant and advisor more than superior. Thank you. I think you
Thank you.
understand my.
Absolutely. Being a leader doesn't mean you're superior to others. It is a very feminist value. And 𝐤𝐤𝐬𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸, you have the honor of kind of closing words to that question.
Okay, thank you
Yes.
so much. I defined leadership, my style of leadership at the beginning as influence, and I always emphasize on authentic and transformational leadership. As a leader, you must be authentic and you must have at the back of your mind put in place a transformational system whereby you're able to keep growing other leaders. A leader must be able to reproduce, leadership in others. And to foster this is there must be mutual agreement between the leaders and the followers. They must work in tandem, and there must be open communication, active listening. A leader must actively listen, and be responsive, to the needs, as against wanting to put one's own ideology, over, the people who you term followers. You must see your followers as leaders too. They are leaders because everyone has something to bring to the table. So we should create a system, of co-creation where everyone is given an opportunity to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those strong words. But before I really close everything, I just want to ask Anila if you have any response before we wrap everything up.
No, I'm super overloaded with the emotions as well. As Razia said, we are human beings. So I think for us, it's very important to recognize the element of we are talking about humanity. We are talking about intersectionality. We are not talking about here even to put men or women against each other, white against black or brown each other, but to understand the intersectionality. Because as Joel mentioned about the historical events which happened, this is the main root cause of colonial approaches, which is embedded in our UN system. That's why we are part of, the current coalition which is running. We are part of coalition for the UN. We need, where we are talking about how we can create our energy and synergy for the transformation, because that's the misconnection we are feeling. That's why New Women Connectors is aiming to connect these different knowledges and to understand. And I will say lastly, like as a leader, this is our responsibility to rethink, reconnect, and also maybe to give this courage to our team to say no. Because in a colonial approach, as I said earlier, we've been pushed the pressure to just follow the new trends. So this is for us to be courageous and to say how we can say no to few things. Thank you so much. And hand over to you, Nur Hidayah. And I'm super happy to hear our leaders from the Nigeria, from Bangladesh and from Fiji. And as I said, this is the first part of our session, and we hope to have more and more in upcoming days. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to all the speakers, 𝐤𝐤𝐬𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸, Razia, Joel, Anila, for all your insights, your lived experiences, your expertise, because you really helped us kick off this Leading Resilience New Knowledge series. So thank you so much. We really honor your time with us. Just to also say that a recording of this conversation will be shared on our YouTube channel, and I will share the link with all of you. We are also working to turn this series into a podcast that, so that we can amplify and multiply our actions and our efforts. There will be further sessions, and please tune in to our social media pages or even subscribe to our newsletter to keep up, to take note of the dates that are coming up. And lastly, just to say, if you really like our work, you want to support us, you want to help us build this future together, and not that this future is just built by a select few, please head over to our website, which is www.newwomenconnectors.com. And you will find the support us button is quite small. We're quite modest. You have to scroll down page, click on that button and donate generously. And your donation really goes a long way to support inclusive policy making, achieving systemic justice, ensuring that all our communities are at the forefront of decision-making tables. So please, we really appreciate your support. So thank you so much again to everyone, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
It's really great to meet you. Thank you, and we'll be in touch. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.